Tonight I thought I would start out with a note of gratitude. How richly God has blessed His church with the papacy in general, but with the last three popes in particular. St. John Paul II, Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, and Pope Francis. All holy men of God, and all in their own way calling us to a maturity of faith, living out of our faith as envisioned by the fathers of the Second Vatican Council. And this maturity of faith, which is my topic tonight, is one that we are called to, whereby we claim the faith as our own, as something that becomes not just part of who we are, but who we are. For in who else but our Lord will we find salvation? Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of everlasting life, St. Peter proclaimed. But we must claim this faith as our own in a particular way, recognizing that it has been passed on to us by faithful men and women, many heroic in keeping the faith, many martyrs for the faith. Many, perhaps most of us, learned the faith on the knees of our mother and father, who with great love, sacrifice, and example exemplified for us what it meant to be a Christian, as well as all the faithful Christians around us. And so we must claim this faith as our own, but not as some personal, private possession, but rather as a humble and faithful steward who has been entrusted with an important and sacred task. That task being nothing less than living out this faith in our own lives and passing on the true faith to others, most especially to our children, but also to our neighbors, our co-workers, and those we meet. And as we pass on the faith, not only by holding fast to the purity and certainty of the doctrinal and moral truths of the faith, but equally and inseparably by how we live out this faith in love. For this proves in deeds what we profess in words. The two are indissoluble. Of course, we'll fall short at times. We'll never reach the point in life where we will not need His grace, will we? This keeps us both humble and close to Him. But there is a danger if we claim our faith as our own in an immature way. If we do claim it as some personal, private possession that we can make anything we want. It's like the exuberance and excitement of a teenager who has been given some measure of freedom and thinks, now I can do whatever I want. No, you've been entrusted with freedom that you may gain maturity and contribute to the good of the family and society. Freedom is not entrusted to you to do whatever you want to, but rather that you might do whatever you ought to. As mature Catholics, we have the freedom to choose any number of ways we can contribute to the good of our families, to the good of society and our faith. We have been given the freedom and dignity to do good, but we are never free to be selfish or to do evil. License or freedom divorced from any notion of good only masquerades as authentic freedom. It is, in actuality, slavery to sin. It is this fundamental misunderstanding and immaturity that has led to many aberrations and the confusion we've witnessed in the Church since Vatican II with regard to the Mass, with regard to morality, with regard to the fundamental role and essential role of the laity, as well as the irreplaceable role of the priesthood and so many other issues. We are stewards of the faith, not its owners. Christ is the head of the church, not us. Speaking at the end of the Rosary in the Basilica of St. Mary Major, Pope Francis once said, "A good mother, that is the church, helps her children to understand what freedom is. Of course, it is not about doing anything one feels like, allowing oneself to be overcome by passions, going from one experience to another without thinking and following the fashions of the time. Freedom does not mean throwing everything we do not like out the window." Unquote. In these words, Pope Francis makes it clear that even those of us who wholeheartedly accept the doctrinal and moral teachings of the Church are still called to an ever greater maturity in faith. We will never stop growing. For instance, sometimes we can be tempted to say, "Lord, I accept all that you teach, all that the Church teaches, and I believe in you. Why am I going through this difficulty or this suffering? Shouldn't I be rewarded instead?" The Pope answered that question rather directly when he said, "We cannot remain adolescents forever. And a life without challenges does not exist. And any boy or girl who doesn't take on these challenges has no backbone." Ouch. In essence, the Pope is rather pointedly reminding us that part of what the Church teaches us is that we will encounter suffering in this life. It should come as no surprise to us. He continues, "During the Passion, Jesus did not speak much, only 2 or 3 necessary words. But it is not a sad silence. The silence of bearing the cross is not a sad silence. It is painful, often very painful, but it is not sad. The heart is at peace. This attitude of endurance is a Christian's normal attitude, but it is not masochistic. It is an attitude that leads them along the path of Jesus." Unquote. And I would add, that path then, therefore, is the path to true joy. Without a doubt, we are called to help one another and our neighbor in bearing the burdens that life places upon us, removing them if it is in our power, and sharing the load if it is not. It is in this way that we become a mature Christian. It is in this way that we become Christ to the world.